We've heard only from Ed and also the town councils. We voted. How many people into the board of selectmen? I'd like to know what each of them actually think of this proposal. We elected them. They should be able to say something personally about this. Thank you.
I'll respond to that. My name is Greg Coyne. I live on 94 North Raceford Road. I am not opposed to some development at this property. I totally respect the opinion of people like Paul Harrigan. From what I heard, Donald Stellato, and I'm sure there's other people who do not want any development on this property. I think if that's a majority of the view, that should carry the day. I'm okay with even this type of development. When I first heard about this proposal, I really didn't have a problem. The only thing that I do hear again and again from people is that we don't have a long-term and a larger plan. So I do agree with that. I do support it. And I do feel like we are potentially selling one piece of the property without considering property in total. I don't doubt we may come back to the same point of we want to take this 17 acres and we want to do something like what we're talking about tonight. But given what I've heard from a lot of people, I feel like in an ideal situation, what I'd like to see is, are there residents who want to develop this for single-family homes? Are there residents who want to leave this whole thing alone and we just eat the $7 million? And are there residents who want to see development like what we have, or possibly more? There's other pieces of this property that can be developed. Are there residents who want to, or receptive to a 9-hole golf course, and do we develop even more? I don't know what the right answer is to anything, and I don't think the Toll Brothers have a bad proposal here. But if I had to vote tonight, I'm not sure I can support it just because I feel like it's a big decision, it's a big piece of property. Oak Lane just went back in business as a competitor. We are currently not with an operator next year. There's a lot of decisions to make.
Tom Kennefick, 4 Burn Swamp Road. I agree with Greg. I think that when the 55 and older was brought up, I didn't think that was a bad idea. I didn't support the town purchasing the golf course at the beginning. I think we paid a lot of money for it. We overpaid for it. And we have an issue now where we have to try and figure out how to get the, how to pay for it, how to service the debt. And I think that's a big issue. And so, unfortunately I wasn't on the board at the time, and that wasn't a decision that I had to make. But the way it is now, this is an opportunity that I think the townspeople should make. And as I suggested at the last meeting, I think we should have a referendum. As Ed said, we're going to have a call for a referendum after this meeting, when the board meets on the signed call for a special meeting. So I think the townspeople need to weigh in on this, and I think that a referendum is a good opportunity to do that. I'm a little confused by the thought of putting the golf course up for possible sale with this piece of property there for development. I guess that Amy had mentioned that earlier, that you've got this big piece of property, we're going to sell off these acreage to Toll Brothers so that they can build up, their 55 age restricted housing. It seems as though the people are against the development of that property, but then I'm hearing also from people who say, well, if we sell off a piece of that to somebody else, then it lowers the value of the whole piece of property if we decide to sell it. So I'm not sure if we're against the Toll Brothers coming in and building, or if we're against any development at all on that piece of property, or if we're only interested in little pieces of that property, such as the corner of Johnson and is it Ansonia. So I'm not really sure where the decision is as far as the town. I think that a referendum is a good opportunity to get the pulse of the community. And as I said earlier, I don't think 55 and older on this piece of property is a bad idea. There are a lot of communities in Connecticut and Massachusetts which have those. They're very nice homes. They're upscale homes, and there's a demand for them. So, you know, that's my opinion.
Beth Heller, can you hear me? Should I yell? Yeah. It's okay. Beth Heller, 600 Ridge in Woodbridge. I have been on the Board of Selectmen since 2008. I did think it was a good idea for us to buy the property. The taxpayers spoke. We had a meeting at the Ambient High School, I believe. And I think that we have made a good decision, and I think we've worked very hard to get this proposal out to the voters. I support a referendum, and we'll see what the voters decide. I do think we also do need over 55 housing in this town. I'm 60, and I'm looking forward to maybe going there. I don't know. Depending on how well Too young? Okay. And I support a referendum, and I hope the voters will decide to do this, because we do need the income.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Susan Jacobs. I'm at 168 Griffin Road. I've been on the Board of Selectmen for 4 months. But I've lived in town for 25 years, and I'm proud to call all of you my neighbors, because rarely do you get to witness this kind of participation in democracy firsthand. It really is quite exciting, and it's been exciting the last several meetings that I've been to in my capacity as a member of the Board of Selectmen. Having said that, however, I think it's very clear from tonight and from prior meetings that what we have here is a set of highly competitive interests. And Board of Selectmen, as with any board, is faced with balancing imperatives not to meet the needs of a particular group, but the community at large. So when I first learned of this proposal, I thought that I'm conflicted about it, very frankly. I think it has very good points. I think it has very bad points. I agree with a lot of what's been said by other selectmen. But what I do think is important is that this board give the community the opportunity to say, we want to continue to pay taxes to support life the way it is, or we want the Board of Selectmen to move forward in a way to have a positive fiscal impact on the community. I think that's the choice. We got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And I think that that's where we are. I think in trying to balance all of these imperatives, we have this proposal before us. Yes, it's complicated. Yes, it's sticky. It's not particularly pretty. And there's a lot of pieces to this that are all, we're trying to keep all these balls in the air at the same time. What I think is the most compelling thing for me is to know that we, as Tom said, we're going to have a vote, and you're going to tell us whether or not we're on the right track, whether or not you choose to keep things the way they are and absorb that fiscal impact of not selling this property, or that some form of development is appropriate and we move forward with that. And even when that happens, that's not the end of it. We don't all crawl under a rock. There are some very optimistic projections as to how long it takes to get approvals. You know, having done zoning for 25 years, I will tell you, I think it takes more than 6 months. That's a reality. But I think that all of those duly constituted town boards and commissions then have the opportunity to weigh in on the kind of nitty-gritty detail that happens at the next stage. Thank you.
Lawrence Profier is not here this evening. He has other responsibilities, but he did vote in favor of this, so I can't say anything further than that. Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Dickerson, 6 Madison Street. I have a quick question for the Toll Brothers representative. With your proposal here, are you going to build this project in phases, or are you going to build the entire project at one time?
Well, we can look at phasing as we get into the more detailed engineering analysis of the development. Possibly it should be phased. I mean, we're going to look to the engineers to give us that input. In terms of how quickly we might build the development or each phase of the development, sort of our business model is that we build upon contract. So when we get a contract to purchase a townhome, we commence construction. We don't spec build really. So the point is, if we're selling quickly, we'll be building more quickly. If we're selling slower, then we'll build slower.
I'll ask you a hypothetical question. If you were required to build the entire project at one time, all of the units, would you be able to do that, or would that be a deal breaker?
Build them before we had contracts.
Every single unit before you have a single contract.
We would not do that.
Thank you.
Hi, Jay Davidson, 1029 Racebrook Road, Woodbridge. To the Toll Brothers representative, you mentioned engineering, and I'm not an engineer, but I've been in the construction business for about 35 years, and I'm just wondering what the pull is to this piece of property, 17 acres of solid rock that interests you. I drove around it today, and it's bordered by two houses on the corner of Brookfield and Ansonia. And other than that, it's ledge and more ledge, and sometimes higher than the peak of that house that's shown in the picture. And this is going to, obviously incur a lot of blasting and almost a mining operation for the people in the neighborhood. And this is such an extremely difficult piece of property to develop. I mean, I wouldn't want to be one of the contractors on a lot or a site because of the enormity of the rock. And to get the underground utilities and the infrastructure in place would require not only getting down to the ground level, but another 4 plus feet down below that to get the public water and the new sewer lines in there. I'm sure the neighbors would really get a joy out of the constant blasting that would be going on for many, many months, if not years, because you're only going to be doing one house at a time or one condo at a time, if that's the way it progresses. And the other side of this is when an opportunity arose to go to a public auction to acquire maybe 84 acres of land for $1 million, and you walk away on a piece of dirt property, and now you're looking at 17 acres of rock. I don't understand how you can equate trying to make a viable development in the situation of an extremely enormous contract.
Let him answer the question. Thank you.
Well, you threw a lot at me. It's, difficulty developing a site is all relative. This is somewhat a difficult site to develop. As I said, it must have been hours ago now. The development costs would be high, but it's doable. And I can show you other developments that we've done in the state that are certainly more challenging than this. So I think we have the expertise and the know-how to pull it off. We've done sites, as I said, that are far more challenging. What's the attraction of Woodbridge? Woodbridge is a terrific town. It's an absolutely terrific town. And we've built here before, we've developed here before, and we'd like to be back.
Okay, since you know who I am, I'll ask the next question. So have you ever, I assume you're proposing that to develop this unit in blasting, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if you do blasting, then since there's radon, there are certain pockets in Woodbridge where there's radon under the ground, and when you blast it, you of course create fissures, which
Are you going to do analysis on the wells of all the abutting properties, and then do testing as you do blasting to make sure that there's no radon release? Was that part of your plan?
Well, you're getting into an area of science, and I've got two engineering degrees, but that's beyond what I can even speculate on. I will say that blasting activity is controlled and monitored usually by your fire marshal.
Do you do adjacent well testing to make sure that prior to the blasting, there are certain levels of radon in those wells, but then afterwards you haven't created fissures that releases more radon into the water that people are drinking in the surrounding properties?
I've never done that, so.
I'm sure you haven't, most people don't. Most developers, large and small, don't do that, but that's what happens when you do blasting, in an area that has radon.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions?
I heard I guess the worst case scenario we should hear maybe in the next presentation in terms of what our taxes will look like. And I'm still on the fence on this, so just assume that certain things here. What taxes would look like if we don't sell the property, we don't enter into another agreement with someone operating a golf course. The golf course for some period of time may go dark if we don't find someone to operate it. And we're concerned about if we're operating. I know that makes all of us nervous. So I guess in that scenario, we have debt service, no lease income, and we have maintenance of the facility. That, I think, is the worst scenario. So I think that's what we need to see on one of the slides. And then we can build it up to whatever people would consider to be the best scenario. I think we do need to see that because that is the worst scenario. Right now, the income that comes in from the country club covers our debt service, but previously we had tax income from the country club, so we had that issue to deal with. I was kind of interested when, as I've said before, I like to watch Channel 79, and I happened to see the Toll Brothers gentleman on back in December 6, 2010. And does anyone know where they were looking at that point? To do the same thing? Anyone know? Anyone answer? What property?
Hubble Farm.
Hmm?
Hubble Farm.
Got it. Okay, anyone else know that?
They've been hunting for years. Hunting
So,
and pecking.
Okay, there's actually 3 places in town. That was what was in the minutes, 3 places that they were considering this. I've heard rumors of the 3rd place, but I'm not sure where that 3rd place may be, okay? And so we have a plan, and we'd like 55 and over down in Litchfield Turnpike and Bradley Road, because we think that's a good place for it to go. And in those same minutes, the gentleman sitting right here stated they wouldn't do that there. They weren't interested in that property because of the congestion and traffic and everything else that we already know as residents already. As a matter of fact, anything that goes in that area, I think until the traffic issue is addressed and the waterway issue that people that get flooded down there is addressed, and believe me, I get impacted periodically. I can't get to my office when the bridge gets covered. Okay, so I think some of those issues also need to be addressed as we look forward. But I guess I hear the part of we have to respond to, we're doing last meeting was the golf authority thing, so there needs to be a way to deal with the crisis, the fact that we don't know if someone's going to be operating a golf course, not operating a golf course. And then we have this proposal which, we hear take our time, which that may be the case, take our time, decide whether or not we want to do it or not. I guess if we take our time, will we find that the opportunity will be lost where the Hubble Farm, and I don't know what the necessary approvals will be there to do it there, or whatever this other 3rd property gets exercised, and then this one's off the board. And I did take a look by the property too, and I looked at the rocks that were probably as big as buses in some cases, and said, this is not a property of being a heart. And I think for those of us that live in Woodbridge, we obviously would prefer that there would be a custom builder come in and built on the lot. But the reality is, a local local custom builder probably doesn't have the wherewithal to deal with that. I do have to agree with one of the comments that was mentioned before that, you know, as we go through, if this gets approved, probably the approval process, if the town requires that there be tests done on the neighboring properties, well, I guess that would be something that we would ask for in that process. So that's something for us you know, to give some consideration to go forward. Another comment that I heard earlier, and it was really kind of I guess a big bad wolf kind of comment type thing in terms of what Toll Brothers is. Really, I have no issue with him at this point. Maybe one of the ways to make, if that proposal was approved, more palatable, because I can see a scenario here where we get half the money up front in 21 months, we get the other half of the money. We know Toll Brothers has a lot of money, we heard that earlier in the presentation, so maybe that we modify the proposal to take the right of first refusal on it. You know, I passed that comment on, that got removed, it was a good idea. We've adjusted the issue with the golf course so we don't upset the hull, that's good. I've mentioned about making sure that we don't overspend and move the tower. I agree with that. Hopefully we don't spend more than we have to spend there as we go along. I think the part about how the property is paid for is an item in that contract that will need to be also tweaked. And I think that we should expect Toll Brothers to pay for the property up front. So that way, 21 months from now, we're not saying, they're not selling the units fast enough, it's not going at a quick enough pace. I think we should be removed from that contingency. I'm glad to see there isn't a financing contingency, but I think that we should ask for it to be paid for so that we're not kind of hanging out there in a negotiating position, hoping that we have something. We kind of got caught in the same situation with the person who's operating the golf course right now, that we're kind of trying to negotiate it at a kind of a position of weakness right now. So I think that would be a comment we make there. Hopefully some of those comments are considered, and I hope that if it is approved, that as we go through the approval process, some of the things that I've heard here tonight, concerns about the approval process, that the level of authority that each of those boards and commissions have is not compromised, and that if it takes longer than 6 months, which it probably will, those are considered. I heard someone say something about traffic here tonight. Yep, I'm sure that the police department will need to review the traffic studies, and if certain things have to happen with the road there to affect the development, that should be considered. Now, that could end up being a deal breaker in the process for Toll Brothers if something has to happen there. That's something that also should be addressed. So those are the things, as I sat here and listened to everyone. I didn't sit here thinking I already had an opinion on this. I sat here and I listened to the things that came up here tonight. And those are my comments based on what I heard tonight.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions? If not, then I thank you all for attending tonight, and I'll close off the public information session, and Board of Selectmen will now meet. Thank you.